Hey folks, real brief, interesting portion in the book of Ruth. We find that Orpah, who was the other widow, the daughter-in-law of Naomi, who had lost her husband, Naomi's son, and you have Ruth, and Naomi's going to return to Judah or Bethlehem, and they're just going to try and scratch out a living. She's too old to have another husband, certainly won't be having any other children. And Orpah is told, and Ruth, that you should return to your people, to their gods, and because I'm not going to be able to produce a child for you. We talked about this last devotion. You can imagine how overwhelming that was, how depressing, the grief that was being experienced at that time. Just overwhelming situation. Much like, I would assume, like a Job having lost so much. Forget the material, his children. Just how overwhelming and depressing that time would be. And she was heading back because she had heard that God was moving and there was no longer a famine. And you'll remember that Orpah loved her mother-in-law. She kissed her, she wept, and she returned to her people. There's nothing in the story that says that this young lady was malicious or hurtful in any way. She did what her mother-in-law asked her to do. But then there's a very interesting part to this. It says that Ruth clung to her mother-in-law, wouldn't leave her. It's very descriptive as it goes on in chapter 1 and verse 16 and 17. I'm not going to go through that right now. But I just want you to think about it because it does speak to us of something. The word there for cling is the same word that's used in Genesis 2:24 to speak of the marriage union, that there's a bond that's created that just can't or shouldn't be broken. Actually, something that God himself does. Apparently something had happened in the heart of Ruth that she just simply couldn't break. I love the verse in Proverbs 18:24 that speaks of the fact that there is a brother that sticks closer. You know, there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. That word sticks closer is the same word. They cling. There's a relationship that God creates, and I believe it has to do with the church also. That very same promise is given in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 31. And then Paul says, I know it's a mystery, but I'm speaking about the church here. There's this bond, there's this relationship. And I just want you to take a moment and think about it. How easy it is in our culture to just shift or quit or move or do. And no one can belittle a person for doing that or say, no one can be the judge of that person, say it's right or wrong. It's up to them and God. But how I long in my heart for people who are fully committed, cling. They just cling. There's a bond that only God himself can create between them and the other members of the church. There's a relationship that's forged in heaven, something that the Spirit of God does in their heart. Their heart, in Colossians 2:1, is knit together, that, a pattern that only God himself can weave. And they just can't leave it. It's not something they can just turn their back on. I wonder oftentimes if in our world, one of the things that's so poor about the testimony of the church is the lack of commitment that we find so often in the church. Transience, emotional reasoning when it comes to a relationship with a church, just how it feels, or is it entertaining? Am I, what do I like about this? Is this a family that God's placed me in? I hope you today will just consider, ask yourself, God, what family is it? I know there's a broad family of God, but what is that? Look, we're all part of the family of humanity, but I'm part of the Powell family. And I could give you my heritage. But Sue and I, she has hers and I have mine. We're bound together. We've created, we are part of that. We have our own. That's special to us. And that relationship at times with the church is a very dear relationship that I fear so many have never experienced. I hope you do. I hope you do. Wherever you go to church, I hope you do. Till next time, friends, God bless you.